Welcome, everybody. This is Career Makers, a TA Tech Live production. My name is Peter Weddle, and on behalf of the worldwide membership of TA Tech, we're very pleased to have you join us for this show. There are lots of great webinars out there covering best practices in talent acquisition and talent acquisition technology, but only one, this show, talks about the people behind those best practices, the people who have developed and refined them. And today, we're very fortunate to have with us Roberto Angulo, who is the CEO of Recruitology. Roberto, welcome to the program.
Hey, Peter, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Wow,
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. It's been too long. Hopefully next year we can get back to face-to-face meetings again.
I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I think we will.
I think we all are. So again, the purpose of this show is to talk about the careers of people who are thought leaders in our space, like yourself, to talk about how they got to where they are, what challenges they faced, what opportunities they've leveraged, and maybe to tell some war stories and share some wisdom along the way. So let's begin by having you tell the audience a little bit about Recruitology. What does the company do, and what's your role in the company?
Cool. Yeah, happy to do it. So, Recruitology, our mission is to even the playing field for companies large and small, so they can get access to the best talent that they can to build their teams. So, uh, we do it by leveraging artificial intelligence. We're building very simple to use tools for small businesses to be able to post their jobs and get them to the right sites so they can get the right candidates. In essence, what we're doing with Recruitology is taking sort of best of breed technology that's accessible to large enterprise companies, right? A lot of sort of the HR tech space is filled with great companies that are building great technology, but they tend to sort of focus it on large customers. What we're doing is we're taking some of this AI, some of this technology, but where we've settled on is in making the tools and the technology accessible to smaller employers. In fact, the majority of companies that are using Recruitology are anywhere from 10 to about 1,000 employees large. So they're kind of on the smaller side of the spectrum. And and that gets me excited because we're filling a void that's being sort of left uh, open in the space. And just to tell you a little bit of myself, um, I've learned about myself that I like working on tough challenges, but I'm also kind of a mission-driven person. So I like working on stuff that has a mission, right? And helping small, medium businesses improve their businesses by hiring the right people. That makes me feel like I'm making a difference, right? In what we do.
Well, small businesses are definitely the engine of the economy in the U.S. So you're really tackling an important segment of the market, and as you say, one that has been largely underserved. So what you're doing is clearly important. How did you get into this field? Tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? How'd you get into this crazy field?
Yeah. I'll tell you about myself. So I grew up in Mexico. I grew up in a city called Nogales. And Nogales, Mexico, is the third. I think it's the third largest border city in Mexico, border with the U.S. So I grew up on the Mexican side, um, and and I basically was there from when I was a kid up until when I was 15. So at 15, my parents decided to move to Tucson just to kind of have a better life for us. We had a good life in Mexico, but definitely, quality of life in the U.S. tends to be better. So I did a couple years of high school in the U.S. I actually wanted to stay in Mexico. I did not want to leave. My parents had to drag me from Nogales to go to Tucson. I even botched like a school interview when I was. They were going to put me in a boarding school, and I just did not want to go. So I did horribly in the interview on purpose. And my parents said, "You're not even having dinner tonight. Go to your room." And I'm like, wow, they've never denied me dinner, so I must have done something really bad. So when I said finally caved, I didn't get into that school because I botched the interview, but I got into another school And my intention was to finish high school in Tucson, but then go back to Mexico. And I had no clue about what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. I just knew I had a good life in Mexico. So I was in high school. I got to high school like sort of sophomore year, and high school is tough when you come from Mexico and you kind of barely speak the language. It kind of makes it even harder. And then when you join sophomore year, uh, you kind of miss out on the friendships that are made freshman year, right? So I had somewhat of a social life, not a lot. So I studied, right? And I got really good grades. And my teachers actually sought me out and said, "Hey, what are you doing for college?" And I was like, "I don't know." So they encouraged me to apply to schools in the U.S. Applied to a bunch of them. Got into this one called Stanford, which I didn't know what it was. I went to visit, and I'm like, "Wow, I love this place." So I went to Stanford, got a combination of scholarships, financial aid, um, came out with like a 4 point something GPA. Because in high school, I didn't do anything but study. So I had a great academic record. And plus, coming from like a different place, like the teachers were impressed, like, "Hey, wow, this guy adapted." So I got really good letters of recommendation. So then I was at Stanford. I knew I wanted to do something in business. Technology was not something I wanted to get into. I didn't really know what tech or computer science was. And from one of my good friends actually at the time, like I think it was junior year, he kind of taught me how to code, like build HTML pages or make HTML. So that sort of got me hooked on what this whole internet thing was. Um, so what I did is I ended up having a few internships where I was coding, and then actually one thing that I still didn't know is what do I want to do when I graduate. I had no idea. Stanford had a really good career center that they were good at sort of funneling you to like either Accenture or like Apple. And this was Apple when it wasn't cool. It was like during its downturn. And then Sun Microsystems and Oracle. And I knew I didn't want to go work for those companies at the time. Um, so I came up with this idea of helping students figure out what to do with their studies. And again, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up working for a company for 2 years. And then I did 2 years there. And then I quit the company. I quit the job and I started what's now after college, right? After college started out as a job board for college students and grads looking to kind of figure out what they should do. And instead of a job board, what we did is we sort of made it so that it was curated jobs from professors. Because the big thing that I figured out in college is that professors know their students better than the career center knows their students, because the professors are more in tune with alumni and so on. So when I quit my job, I said, "Hey, I want to give sort of starting a company a shot." And I didn't want to do it straight out of school because I just didn't have confidence that I could do it. But after being at a big company, it was a company that had gotten bought by Verizon. And at Verizon, I figured out, wow, like, a big company, I learned a lot, but I also learned that big companies don't have all the answers. So it gave me the confidence to kind of go out and strike out, and if it didn't work out, it would have been fine. But one of the things I didn't want to do is have regrets. So I quit my high paying job. Um, my parents thought I was nuts. Like, how are you leaving this job with like good pay, benefits, and like you just got promoted in like a year? Anyway, I did that. So I started what is after college, and we basically grew it to be the largest network for college students up until like 2010, 2011. And from there, like I wanted to keep growing it more. And we started sort of saying, okay, this college recruiting market is big, but it's not that big. So at the time we were basically doing partnerships with media companies that were buying jobs. So for example, Houston Chronicle, right? All these newspapers at the time, media companies, they had this captive audience of employers and they wanted to advertise, but they wanted to reach all these audiences that they didn't have. And all these media companies had partnered with Monster and Career Builder at the time. And all these employers wanted entry-level talent, which they couldn't get access to. After college gave them that entry-level talent. So we ended up striking all these partnerships with them and ended up doing pretty well by receiving jobs from these media companies. So after a while, like after college and this part of after college, which is this media channel business, they were both growing in different directions. And that's sort of what was becoming Recruitology, was this media channel. And it grew beyond after college. So in 2014, 15, we started thinking, hey, this needs to be its own thing. So we basically took the media partnership side of after college. We bought this company called Crosspost at the time. Crosspost had done all these partnerships with like Indeed and ZipRecruiter. They had integrations with hundreds of sites or dozens of sites. And then we took that and we rebranded it as Recruitology, just to basically grow that media business that was growing. And what we quickly figured out is, yeah, these traditional newspapers that are shifting towards this digital model, they have this loyal base of employers that nobody else has, right? So in a given year, so when we did that in 2015, when we finally spun out Recruitology, we had 100 media companies partnering with us. Now we have over 500, and the number of employers that we help with our partners grew from like a few thousand to like 56,000 a year. So that part of the business has grown. So after college, basically continues to run as its own site, its own service. But then, I've sort of moved over to the Recruitology side, and my focus is to be CEO of Recruitology and growing that. And the mission there is helping small businesses through these partners of ours recruit the right people. And after college happens to be one of the 500+ sites that we actually distribute jobs to. And what we built is this programmatic offering where any SMB can post through one of our partners. They don't even know they're getting programmatic. They just know, hey, if I need to hire, I can go to like nj.com, or I can go to oregonlive.com, or I can go to chicagotribune.com. I post my job there, and it's also going to go to all these other top sites where I'm going to get the right candidates in the door. So that's been the focus for us since about 2015.
And along the way, you found time to write a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's sort of one of the cool things about after college. So we sort of grew after college to be the big fish in that small pond, which is college recruiting. So over the years, I've had sort of the privilege of getting opportunities like writing a book. So I think it was back in 2017, Wiley reached out and said, hey, we want to write a book about helping just students figure out sort of their path and how to find the job. And I remember they said, hey, do you want to write a book? I'm like, no, I barely have time to read books. So I don't want to write a book. But they said, no, we'll help you. So I got an editor who reached out. And it was actually a cool experience. I've never written a book. I didn't know how the heck to write a book. And the structure was pretty cool. So we first kind of sat down and said, okay, is there really a book here? So I just started listing things that over the years have helped students, right? So we started with the outline, and then they said, all right, this is a book. And then they said, okay, can you write this thing in like 3 months? So I basically wrote the book with them over a 3-month period, and nights on the weekends, and just sort of as a side job. I mean, you've written a lot of books. It's hard writing a book. I found that it's really hard. I think I went to TA Tech in Barcelona. You and I met up there, like, I don't know, I think it was in 2017. So before I saw you there, I was writing the book. After I saw you, I went back to write a book. On the flight to Barcelona, I was writing the book. And on the flight back, I was writing the book. And they published it at the end of 2017. We promoted it on after college. And I hear from people saying, hey, thank you for the book. Like, it's helped me with different things. And I just sort of made it pretty kind of stupid simple about, hey, these are the things you need to worry about. Focus on these things and do this to improve your chances of making sure you know what you want to do, and then making sure you're prepared for every step of the job search process and then the interview process and so forth. So yeah, it was a really rewarding experience, and I'm pretty proud of that work, because it's a culmination of like all these things that we tell students and that we've heard from students that they struggle with, and we've yeah, I mean, I have high hopes for the book in terms of like continuing to do future editions and expanding it in scope, that not just college students, but anyone sort of looking to improve their chances of getting a good job. So it was a good eye-opening experience for me, and there's definitely a need for job seekers to receive help, because a lot of job seekers still don't know what they need to do to make sure they get the right job. So yeah, it was fun writing the book, and it was very fulfilling.
So if someone wants to get the book, what's the full title and is it available on Amazon, for example?
Yeah, so actually, yeah, thanks for the plug. So the the book is Getting Your First Job, and it's one of the dummies books. So it's Getting Your First Job for Dummies. And you can go to Amazon and look for it there. So you can just type in Getting Your First Job on Amazon or any other bookstore. You can type in my name, Roberto Angulo, and I'll appear as the author of the book. Um, and they have it in most public libraries. So you can go to any library and check it out there as well. Again, Getting Your First Job for Dummies, one of the Dummies books by Wiley. So
Gotcha.
so it's yeah, it's still timely actually. It's been 3 years since they put it out. I think I want to do a feature like an edition just to update some of the things we have in there, but it's a great resource.
Well, one of the things that I think people forget that is if they've been in a job for a long time and for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or a recession or just the company goes through a tough spot, they end up out on the job market for the first time in 20 years, 25 years. It's like looking for your first job all over again. The whole strategy and tactics of job search changes over time. So what you did successfully in the year 2000 is not likely to work very well in 2021. So having a book like that, it seems to me, even if you're not, looking for your first job in theory, in terms of you've been in the workplace for a while, but this is your first job in the workplace in quite some time, it can still be helpful for you.
Definitely. And actually, you know who basically did a good job with that? Remember Dig Bowles? What color
Sure.
is your parachute? Uh, yeah, and yeah, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But he he actually encouraged me. So I would have lunch with him because he lived in the Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco, and he lives in the East Bay, where he used to live in the East Bay. But he pretty much he and I would talk about that the concepts to help somebody get their first job are also very similar to the concepts that could help somebody who's about to retire figure out what to do next, right? So the other thing is that people are living longer. We're living longer. We're not ready to basically stop working. So there's a lot of talent out there represented by folks who are retiring that maybe don't want to work full time, but they can consult. And like you said, somebody's been in the workforce of 20, 30 years. Um, and it's just a shame to let that talent go to waste. So for me, there's a big opportunity in just helping retirees or people even who are mid-career who've just been sort of working paycheck to paycheck and they've acquired skill sets that they might not even know are valuable to sort of up their hand and improve their prospects and their path in life, you know? So this
Yeah.
concept of helping people, you're right, help their first job is something that I mean, not everyone needs help. We all need help, right? Like I need help, right? I've been, what else can I do? How else can I contribute? Like sometimes we're too busy doing our own thing that we need perspective and somebody to help us or something to help us figure out what else we could contribute to.
So you started or founded after college, coming after a couple of years at a job after graduating from Stanford, and that first couple of years in your first job after college, uh, what stands out in terms of a particularly important lesson that you learned about managing your career? You took a big risk. You decided to be an entrepreneur, sort of without any background or experience. You just dove right in. But what was it about those first 2 years that you learned about yourself or about the job market that helped you make that decision?
So one of the big things I learned in my job in those 2 years after college was that talking to as many people as possible is good. So when I graduated, this company that I went to work for was called BBN. BBN were the folks who invented the internet out of this ARPANET project, and then they eventually got gobbled up by GTE, which is now Verizon. So when I joined, it was this unit of a bigger company, and I think what something that I sort of stumbled upon that I really that really benefited me was I ended up talking to a lot of people. So I sort of had my thing that I wanted to do. Like I was a project coordinator. Uh, and and my job was to build reports for the project managers. Uh, and it was the first job, so I'm like, okay, I'll take this. And I like the company, I like the people, but I kind of hated what I did. So what I did is I ended up automating the report creation. So I in essence pretty much ended up eliminating my job because they didn't need me to run reports. I created dashboards for them to build reports. So what it did is it opened up an opportunity to me to become a project manager and work on larger projects, infrastructure projects. So I was basically involved in helping companies like Bechtel figure out what their IT infrastructure was going to look like. BBN was building out what is now the Verizon network. So you had this company Quest laying down like dark fiber along the railroad tracks. And I was kind of involved in some of these projects and looking at sort of the P&L of those and how, when would they pay out. So things like that were a learning experience. I think what I learned was don't be afraid to basically do something that eliminates your job, because most of the time there's other opportunities, right? If you can do something that basically makes you more efficient, don't be afraid of basically eliminating that opportunity, because there's other opportunities that you can pursue at that company or outside, right? And I met a lot of people at that big company that were content doing their little thing, and they were basically protective of their territory, which is something I found at a big company. And people were afraid to lose their job if because I was automating stuff that other people were doing too. And in my case, I just ended up killing my own job, but I ended up doing another job, right? And I think that's looked upon as favorably, and that's something I figured out. Don't be afraid to rock the boat and do something that's going to improve the company, because if you're doing good work, your work is either going to be appreciated there, or you can show to somebody outside saying, hey, this is what I can do, and I'd like to be able to do it for you. So there's always opportunities if you're kind of a go-getter. That's sort of if I look back upon it, I think that's one of the best things I could have done, at the company. The other thing is kind of before that, I had an internship where I kind of fibbed. I had a summer internship at Intuit. They make Quicken, they make QuickBooks. Um, and I just didn't need a summer internship, and they needed somebody to build out a website for them that would automate this beta tester reporting. So they had, back in the day, people were buying QuickBooks on CD-ROMs, and then you had beta testers that were testing the software, and they would submit beta reports, like bug reports, over fax. So they needed interns to basically go in and help automate that. So they said, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Yes." I had no clue how to do it, actually, and I knew how to build websites, but I didn't know how to do the whole database thing. So I remember during the summer, I went in on the 4th of July, and I just kind of learned how to do it. Um, and I stayed friends with my boss, and years later, I said, "Hey, you knew I was BSing when I told you I could do this, right?" I had no clue. And he said, "I know, I knew, but it seems like you were going to figure it out, so I give you a chance." Uh, so for me, the lesson there was like, I did the right thing, right? Like, worst case, I would have failed, but I guess don't be afraid to say you're going to do something. So if as a job seeker, go for it. Like, don't be afraid to say, if you don't know, that you're going to do something, and then you figure it out. And as an employer, I've sort of taken that with me. And when we're hiring people, it's not so much about what they've done before, but are they up for the task of doing what you need them to do? So don't fixate on hiring somebody who knows it or has done it before. Fixate on getting somebody who's going to be able to do what you need them to do. So those are, I guess, that's one lesson, or a couple of lessons there from that internship and the first job.
So as you launched yourself into, being a tech entrepreneur, and you built out after college, and then you took Recruitology out as a separate unit, and you're now building that business. During that long pathway, what single challenge stands out in your mind that really set you back and caused you to really come up with some innovative ideas or some new strategies that would enable you to get over that challenge?
So I think Yeah, with after college, we went through the Great Recession of '08, right? So, and we thought the business was going to shut down, and we had to shrink, and that was hard for me. Like, it's not just what you work on, but who you work with. So I look back to that 2008 recession as a big deal because our business shrank by 25% on the media side, on the small business side, and almost by 50% on the big enterprise client side. And then COVID, with COVID again, it was like 2008 all over again. COVID, the beginning was hard for I think a lot of companies in the space too. Um, but back in March of last year, I think we were thinking, hey, are we even going to make it, right? And I think what we had this time around that I learned from the recession in '08, uh, whatever changes you're going to make, do them quickly, or whatever reductions you need to do, make them quickly, and use math, right? Like, don't assume the world's going to end. Go open up your Google sheet or Excel and do your calculations, because the worst case scenario is never as bad as you think. Even when things are hard, like, you can always get through them, right? You'll have to adapt, you'll have to make sacrifices, but I think the learning lesson is, yeah, the sky's never falling. Things could look really bad, but if you're committed to it, you're going to get through it. Um, so even though things were hard during the recession of '08 and then the beginning of COVID, March of last year, like, just knowing that your worst case scenario is never nothing helps, right? There's always, once you hit bottom, then it'll, from there it goes up. And just do good planning, have good financial planning, and just do the math. Like, don't get emotional. Like, get emotional in terms of supporting people during the time, but basically keep your logical head right as you're going through these challenges. And what
There,
doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I'm a strong believer in that.
yeah, that sounds a lot like. Have you seen the movie The Martian?
Yeah,
Yeah, at the very end, after he's successfully been
the Matt
rescued
Damon
from
movie,
Mars.
right?
Yeah, the Matt Damon
Yeah,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And he's in the room and he's teaching a whole new class of astronauts. And he said, your space is unforgiving. You're going to come to points in time where you're going to face life or death challenges. And he said the only way to get through it is you just do the math. You just keep focusing on, there's one problem, I'll solve that problem. Then you get to the next problem and you solve that problem. And you get to the next problem. And you keep doing that over and over and over again until eventually you get to the point where you survive, or better yet, you prosper. So I think that's similar to what you were saying is, you have to make hard decisions based on rational analysis. But there's also the underside of that, which is you have to be a human being and you have to treat people with respect and dignity, even if you have to make some tough choices along the way.
Exactly. And I think the first, 2008, we acted quickly, but we were reacting. I think with COVID, we sort of had the idea what was coming, and we proactively planned for it, and we did it methodically, but also with treating people with as much respect and dignity as we could. So, and it's paid off, right? Like, it's, and being honest and transparent with folks, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, and at the end of the day, it's, we're all better for it.
Yeah. So we always close out these interviews with probably the single most important question that we ask our guests, and that is, given what you know today, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self as you were about to launch your career? What wisdom would you share with yourself so that you launched off in a pathway towards success?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was kind of thinking about it. I think just in my specific case, so recruitology, we're very focused on helping the employers find the right talent, right? And it's a very noble uh, mission that we have. That's also very financially sound. With after college, I sort of, with recruitology, we're not working on the job seeker side so much because we're strictly an employer-focused service. But I kind of miss the job seeker side of it, which is kind of what I had with after college, and sort of helping that job seeker. I think if I were to go back, I would tell myself, hey, think bigger, and when starting after college, maybe start something not just to help college students, but to help more folks that are mid-career, even retirees. I think that that's a big challenge that I'm still kind of itching to solve. Um, and it'd be great to sort of be doing that, and having expanded the sort of the scope of what we started out to do initially is something that I would tell myself, like, think bigger. Yeah, help college students, but try to help the broader population that needs guidance and help and sort of progressing in their career. Because that's a bigger, nobler vision, and it's 20 years later, it's still something that needs to be addressed, right? People need help in sort of their career progression. COVID is, we're seeing it in COVID, right? People are basically deciding not to go back to work, either because they're not able to, or because they can afford not to, and they're upskilling and getting into higher paying jobs, things like that. Having sort of helping people get upward mobility, I think that's a very good good vision, and something I would have started on doing earlier if I would have known. I would have told myself, hey, start after college, but just think bigger to cover a broader spectrum of the population.
Well, in
But
many respects, oh, excuse me, go ahead, please.
no, and then maybe 10 years ago, I would have told myself, buy some Bitcoin when it was like 15 bucks, 15 bucks a coin.
Well, there's always that, the Monday
Yeah.
morning quarterbacking. We all have perfect hindsight, but I was going to say that, the arc of your career is very much the quintessential American success story. I mean, you were an immigrant. Your parents came to this country to create a better life for you, and look what you're doing now. In many respects, you're repaying that faith in the American dream by helping others find their American dream. So it's it's a great story, and I want to thank you for joining us today. It's really been a treat, Roberto, to have a chance to learn a little bit more about you and about your career success. For those of you who are regular viewers of Career Makers, our next session is going to be November 23rd. We're going to have Lee Biggins, who is the CEO of CV Library, a company based in the UK, but now working in North America as well. And because Lee is located in the UK, our session will be starting at 11 a.m. On the 23rd rather than our traditional 2 p.m. So join us if you can. Otherwise, please make sure that you go to tatech.org/tatech-live and listen to the recordings of Roberto's session and all the others that are posted there. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Peter. It's been an honor. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. You bet.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.